Okay, so we're starting our journey through the AZ 900 Fundamentals exam with Learning Part 1, and it's all about cloud concepts. This is really where we build a foundational understanding of what the cloud is before diving into specifics about Microsoft Azure. We'll be talking about things like what makes cloud computing different from traditional IT, exploring various cloud service models, think infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service, and looking at the different types of clouds out there. Public, private, and hybrid. It's essential to grasp these core ideas because they'll be referenced throughout the rest of the course. We'll also discuss cloud benefits like high availability, scalability, elasticity, agility, and cost savings, which are all major reasons organizations are moving to the cloud. So let's jump in and demystify what this whole cloud thing is all about. Okay, so let's talk about how we're going to approach this material. We have a pretty clear learning path laid out for us, and I want to give you an overview of what to expect. Think of it as a roadmap for the course. We'll be moving through these topics in a specific order, building on each concept as we go. First, we'll establish some foundational understandings, getting everyone on the same page with key definitions and principles. Then, we'll dive into practical applications, showing you how those concepts actually work in real-world scenarios. After that, we'll spend time focusing on more complex problem-solving techniques, pushing you to think critically and creatively. Finally, we will culminate in a project where you get to demonstrate everything you've learned, a chance to really put your skills into practice. Does anyone have any initial questions about the general flow of things? Let's begin by outlining what we'll cover in this learning path. We are going to systematically explore the world of cloud computing, starting with a fundamental understanding of what it is and progressing through its practical applications and economic considerations. This journey will equip you to make informed decisions about leveraging the cloud for your own projects or organizations. Think of it like building a house. We'll look at everything from owning the land all the way to simply renting an apartment, and what each option entails. Topic. Cloud computing. First up is cloud computing itself. At its core, cloud computing means delivering computing services, things like servers, storage, databases, networking, software, analytics, and intelligence over the internet, often referred to as the cloud. Instead of owning and maintaining physical data centers and servers yourself, you rent access to these resources from a provider like Microsoft Azure. Imagine needing powerful software but not wanting to buy it outright. Cloud computing allows you to rent that software on demand. This section will then delve into shared responsibility, the different cloud models available, such as public, private, and hybrid clouds, and finally how to think about capital versus operational costing. Now we'll shift our focus to understanding the advantages cloud computing offers. Topic. Cloud benefits. The Cloud Benefits module will examine why organizations are increasingly adopting cloud solutions. These advantages include things like reduced cost, increased scalability and flexibility, improved disaster recovery, and access to cutting-edge technologies, basically all things that make running a business easier and more efficient. It's about gaining agility and innovation without the huge upfront investment of traditional infrastructure. Finally, we'll get into the specifics of how you can use the cloud with different service types. Topic. Cloud service types. This cloud service type segment unpacks IaaS, infrastructure as a service, PaaS, platform as a service, and SaaS, software as a service. These represent different levels of control and management you have over your resources, from complete control in IaaS to simply using an application in SaaS. We will explore each one in detail so that you can choose the best fit for your needs. Topic. Cloud computing. Let's begin with a fundamental concept, cloud computing. At its most basic, cloud computing means delivering computing services, things like servers, storage, databases, networking, software, analytics and intelligence over the internet, often referred to as the cloud. Think of it like this. Instead of owning and maintaining your own physical power plant to get electricity, you simply pay for the electricity you use from a provider. This shift is incredibly powerful because it allows organizations to access technology resources on demand without significant upfront investment or ongoing maintenance costs. A small business, for instance, could use cloud services to host its website and store customer data instead of buying expensive servers and hiring dedicated IT staff. This flexibility and scalability are key benefits, enabling rapid growth and innovation. It's about moving away from owning infrastructure towards utilizing it as a service. Let's begin by establishing a firm understanding of what we mean when we talk about cloud computing. What is cloud computing? Cloud computing is simply means delivering computer services, like servers, things like running applications, software, storing the internet instead of owning and maintaining them yourself, instead of relying solely on your own hardware or data centers. Rather than buying a generator for your house to have electricity, you pay an electric company for hosting that movie on your laptop, but accessing it as a service provided cloud computing offers. This shift allows for faster innovation because it allows businesses to spend more time building and maintaining innovation rather than infrastructure management. Focus on their core business instead. Cloud models now. Let's explore different ways now. Let's look at those three icons we see here. We have public clouds, compute, like Microsoft Azure, Amazon Web Services, or Google Cloud refers to the processing power you use, essentially the brains of the operation like a virtual machine handling calculations or running your website. Then there's the private cloud where your organization has dedicated how everything connects solely for its use. As the rope that allow data to flow between different parts of the system. We have hybrid clouds which combine both approaches, allowing flexibility to run storage is where you keep all your files and others in a private environment. Instead of physical hard drives, these models it lives securely in a remote data center. It depends heavily on what you're trying to achieve. The beauty of this model lies in its flexibility and economies of scale. Use cases public clouds are fantastic providers like Microsoft Azure can offer these services because of their scalability, than most individual organizations provide greater control and security for sensitive data. A small startup, for instance, hybrid environments offer the best heavily upfront, leveraging public cloud benefits they can scale resources up or down as needed. Consumption-based model. A key characteristic of the cloud is its consumption-based model. You only pay for what you use. This differs sharply from traditional IT where you're often making upfront investments in hardware that might sit idle much of the time. Imagine a water bill. You're charged based on how many gallons you consume, not a fixed monthly fee regardless of usage. The cloud operates similarly. Cloud pricing. Finally, let's briefly touch upon cloud pricing models. These can vary significantly but often include pay-as-you-go options, reserved instances for long-term commitments with discounted rates, and spot instances where you bid on unused capacity. Understanding these nuances is crucial for cost optimization and ensuring a predictable budget within your cloud strategy. Let's begin by discussing private clouds, which represent a foundational approach to cloud computing. Think of it like building your own personal data center within the walls of your existing company infrastructure. You're creating that cloud environment entirely in-house. This means you have complete control over the physical hardware and the software running on top of it, but also assume full responsibility for its operation and maintenance. Creation and control. When an organization chooses a private cloud, they are essentially saying, we want all the benefits of cloud, scalability, automation, but we'll manage everything ourselves. It involves investing in servers, networking equipment, virtualization software, and a dedicated IT team to keep it running smoothly. For example, A large bank might build a private cloud to host sensitive financial data because they need extremely tight control over security and compliance. Topic: Operational responsibility. A key aspect is that the organization is entirely responsible for operating those services. This includes everything from patching software and monitoring performance to ensuring high availability and disaster recovery. It's similar to owning a car. You get to customize it, but you're also on the hook for all repairs and upkeep. This contrasts with other cloud models where some of these tasks are handled by a provider. Topic: Limited access. Finally, private clouds typically don't offer access to users outside of the organization itself. It's designed for internal use only, providing a secure environment for employees and applications within the company boundaries. Imagine it as an exclusive club. Membership is restricted to those who belong, enhancing privacy and security. A hospital might use a private cloud to store patient records, ensuring that only authorized personnel can access confidential information. Let's begin discussing the public cloud. Think of it like renting an apartment instead of owning a house. The building is owned and maintained by someone else, but you get to live there and use its facilities. In this case, the building is a massive data center owned by companies like Microsoft Azure, Amazon Web Services, or Google Cloud Platform. These providers offer computing resources, things like storage space, processing power, and software applications, to many different customers simultaneously. Topic: Ownership model. Specifically, public cloud infrastructure isn't dedicated to a single organization. It's shared among numerous users. This is fundamentally different from having your own servers in-house where you are responsible for everything. A real-world example is using Salesforce. You don't manage the servers that run Salesforce, they do it for you. Topic: Multi-tenancy. Now, let's talk about providing resources to multiple organizations. This means several businesses can utilize the same underlying infrastructure while keeping their data and applications completely separate and secure from each other. Imagine a large office building with different companies occupying individual suites. They share common areas but have private spaces for their operations. This is achieved through virtualization, which allows creating isolated computing environments on shared hardware. Topic: Access method. Finally, accessing these resources typically happens through a secure network connection, most often the internet. It's like checking your email or streaming videos. You connect to servers over the web without needing to know where those servers physically are. This ease of access is one of the biggest advantages of public cloud, allowing you to scale and adapt quickly based on your needs. The image here illustrates that connection with data flowing between a user and the cloud provider's infrastructure. Topic: Hybrid cloud introduction. Let's talk about hybrid cloud, which is really about flexibility. It's essentially blending a public cloud, like Microsoft Azure, with your own private cloud infrastructure. Think of it like owning a house but also renting an apartment when you need extra space for guests or projects. You use the best option depending on what you're doing at that moment. The visual here shows this nicely. We have a representation of some applications flowing from a private data center, that's the building, and connecting to Azure, represented by the cloud graphic. This allows organizations to keep sensitive data and critical apps in their own controlled environment while leveraging the scalability and cost-effectiveness of public cloud services for other workloads. It's about strategic placement based on needs like security, compliance, or even just fluctuating demand. So instead of an either-or decision between public and private, hybrid offers a both-and approach, enabling you to optimize your IT resources effectively. Let's think about the different ways organizations can approach using cloud computing. This comparison table lays out three main models: public clouds, private clouds, and hybrid clouds, and highlights some of their key differences. We'll go through each one to understand what sets them apart. Topic: Public cloud. First, let's consider the public cloud. It's characterized by having no capital expenditures required for scaling up. Essentially, you don't need to invest heavily in servers and infrastructure upfront. It's similar to renting an apartment versus buying a house. You pay for what you use as you go. This also means applications can be quickly provisioned and deprovisioned because the resources are readily available on demand, making it very agile. Because of this model, organizations only pay for what they consume, like your monthly utilities bill. You aren't stuck paying for capacity you don't utilize. Now, let's shift gears to understand how a private cloud differs. Topic: Private cloud. With a private cloud, hardware must be purchased for both startup and ongoing maintenance. This is akin to building your own data center. It requires significant investment in equipment, space, and skilled personnel. Because you own the infrastructure, organizations have complete control over their resources and security. You're fully responsible for defining everything from network configurations to access controls. However, this control comes with a trade-off. Organizations are also directly responsible for all hardware maintenance and updates, which can be complex and costly. Finally, let's look at the hybrid cloud model. Topic: Hybrid cloud. This approach provides the most flexibility by allowing you to combine elements of both public and private clouds. Organizations determine where their applications run based on factors like cost, security requirements, and performance needs. Think of it as strategically choosing which tasks are best suited for a rental versus what must be kept in-house. Crucially, with this setup, organizations retain control over security, compliance, and legal requirements because they can choose the environment that best meets those standards. Let's talk about how we pay for things when it comes to technology, specifically the difference between capital expenditure and operational expenditure, often shortened to CapEx and OpEx. These are really fundamental concepts in understanding cloud computing because they change how you think about cost. Think of buying a car versus taking an Uber. That's essentially the core difference we'll explore today. Topic: Capital expenditure. Capital expenditure, or CapEx, represents upfront spending on physical infrastructure. This means it's money spent to acquire assets like servers, data centers, networking equipment, things you physically own and control. It's a large initial investment. Imagine purchasing that car outright. The interesting part about this expense is the value decreases over time as the asset ages or becomes obsolete, which we account for through something called depreciation. Now, let's shift gears and look at operational expenditure. Topic: Operational expenditure. Operational expenditure, or OpEx, covers spending on products and services as needed. This model is like paying for that Uber ride. You only pay when you use the service. You're billed immediately for what you consume. There's no large upfront commitment. Essentially, it's a pay-as-you-go approach to cost, which makes budgeting more predictable and flexible. Let's talk about how cloud service providers charge for their offerings, which centers around this idea of a consumption-based model. Essentially, this means you aren't buying a fixed amount of computing power or storage upfront. Instead, you pay only for what you actually use. Think of it like your electricity bill at home. You don't pay a flat fee regardless of how much energy you consume. The more you use, the higher the cost. Topic: Cost prediction. Now, one immediate benefit of this model is better cost prediction. Traditionally, businesses would have to over-provision resources to handle peak loads, leading to wasted money during slower periods. With consumption-based pricing, you can analyze your usage patterns and forecast cost with greater accuracy. This allows for more efficient budgeting and resource allocation, a significant advantage for any organization. Topic: Resource pricing. A crucial aspect of the consumption model is that prices are clearly provided for individual resources and services. Azure, like most cloud providers, publishes detailed pricing information for things like virtual machine compute time, storage capacity, or database operations. This transparency allows you to compare costs across different options and choose what best fits your needs. You can see exactly how much each component will cost before deploying it. Topic: Usage-based billing. Finally, Billing is based on actual usage, not estimates or commitments. Cloud providers track the resources you consume, the number of gigabytes stored, the CPU hours used by a virtual machine, the data transferred, and then generate an invoice accordingly. This granular level of detail ensures that you are only paying for what you've truly utilized, which is far more equitable than older models. Topic: Introduction to cloud benefits. We often talk about the cloud as if it's one single thing, but really it represents a fundamental shift in how we think about computing resources. Traditionally, organizations own and managed everything: the servers, the networking equipment, even the physical space they sat in. Moving to the cloud means someone else handles that infrastructure for you, allowing your team to focus on building great applications instead of maintaining hardware. This is where all sorts of benefits start to emerge, things like cost savings, increased agility, and global scalability. Think about it like switching from owning a car to using a ride-sharing service. You still get transportation, but the responsibility for maintenance, insurance, and parking shifts elsewhere. Let's delve into the core advantages you gain when moving to the cloud, focusing on what these changes actually mean for your operations and overall strategy. We'll be exploring benefits across several key areas. First, we will look at high availability and scalability. These are often discussed together because they complement each other so well. High availability simply refers to ensuring your services are consistently operational, minimizing downtime. Think of it like having a backup generator for your home, instantly kicking in when the power grid fails. Scalability is the ability to easily adjust resources based on demand, allowing you to handle spikes in traffic without performance issues. Imagine a restaurant that can quickly add more tables and staff during peak hours. Cloud platforms excel at both by automatically distributing workloads across multiple servers and rapidly provisioning new capacity as needed. Let's talk about why organizations are increasingly moving to the cloud. We'll cover a number of key advantages, and I think you'll find these concepts pretty intuitive once we break them down. The first benefit listed is high availability, which simply means ensuring your services are consistently up and running. Think of it like having multiple backup generators for a hospital. If one fails, another immediately takes over so there's no interruption in critical care. The cloud does something similar with redundancy across different locations. This minimizes downtime and provides a better experience for users because they can always access what they need. Let's talk about cloud service types, because understanding this is fundamental to making informed decisions when you move your applications and data to the cloud. Think of it like choosing a restaurant. Do you want someone to cook everything for you, just provide the ingredients, or rent out the kitchen? These different approaches represent the core models of cloud computing. There are three main types: infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service, often shortened to IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. Each offers a varying degree of control and responsibility, which we'll explore in detail shortly, but for now, remember they represent different ways of delivering computing resources over the internet. Let's talk about the world of cloud services and what choices you have when moving your applications and data there. This isn't a one-size-fits-all situation. We'll break down three core models: infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service, and understand how responsibilities are shared between you and the cloud provider. Finally, we'll consider which model is best suited for different tasks. Topic: Infrastructure as a service. Now, infrastructure as a service, often shortened to IaaS, gives you the building blocks of IT, servers, storage, networking, but you manage everything on top of that. Think of it like renting an empty office space. The landlord provides the walls and basic utilities, but you furnish it, set up your computers, and handle all the internal operations. A great example is using virtual machines through Azure. You define how many processors, how much memory, and which operating system to use. IaaS offers a lot of flexibility because you control so much, making it ideal for organizations needing custom configurations or migrating existing applications as is. Moving on, topic. Platform as a service. Platform as a service, or PaaS, takes things a step further by providing not just the infrastructure, but also the tools to develop and run your applications. Imagine that same office space now comes pre-furnished with desks, chairs, and even an IT department handling some maintenance. Azure App Service is a perfect example. You simply upload your code and it handles scaling, patching, and other underlying infrastructure tasks. PaaS lets developers focus on coding without worrying about server management, making it great for agile development teams. Then we have topic. Software as a service. Software as a service, commonly known as SaaS, delivers fully functional applications over the internet. You simply use the software. Think of it like subscribing to a streaming service. You don't worry about servers or updates, just enjoying the content. Microsoft 365 is a classic example. Word, Excel, and PowerPoint are all accessible through your browser without any local installation or maintenance. SaaS is excellent for readily available solutions like email, CRM, and collaboration tools. Finally, let's discuss topic. Shared responsibility model, because this is crucial. The cloud provider isn't responsible for everything. The shared responsibility model defines who handles what in terms of security and management. Generally, as you move from IaaS to PaaS to SaaS, more responsibility shifts to the cloud provider. In an IaaS environment like Azure VMs, you manage the operating system, applications, data, runtime, middleware, everything above the virtualization layer. With PaaS, Azure handles the OS and middleware, but you still control your application and data. In SaaS, Microsoft takes care of almost all aspects, including the application itself, leaving you to focus on using it effectively. And lastly, topic. Use cases. Knowing when to use each service is key. IaaS suits complex workloads or migrations, PaaS empowers developers with rapid deployment, and SaaS delivers quick-to-use solutions for everyday business needs. Let's begin with infrastructure as a service, often shortened to IaaS. It's about fundamentally changing how you think about IT resources. Instead of owning and maintaining physical servers, storage, networks, and all the related hardware, you rent them from a cloud provider. Think of it like this. Instead of buying a car outright, with all the cost of insurance, maintenance, and parking, you're essentially leasing one whenever you need it, paying only for the time you use it. That flexibility is the core benefit. Topic. IaaS components. The diagram beautifully illustrates what constitutes this infrastructure. We have servers, the computing power, storage to hold your data, networking components like virtual switches and firewalls to control access, and even the physical data center itself, which you don't have to worry about managing. These elements are all provided as a service by companies like Azure, AWS, or Google Cloud. Topic. Pay-as-you-go model. The key phrase here is pay-as-you-go. This means you scale your resources up or down based on demand, no more over-provisioning and wasting money on idle capacity. For example, a retail website might need massive server power during the holiday season but significantly less the rest of the year. IaaS allows them to precisely match their infrastructure cost to actual needs. It's about gaining agility and reducing capital expenditure. Topic. PaaS introduction. Platform as a service, often shortened to PaaS, represents a significant shift in how we think about application development and deployment. It's essentially providing developers with everything they need, the tools, the environment, to build and run their software without worrying about the underlying servers, networks, or operating systems. Think of it like renting a fully equipped kitchen instead of building one from scratch. You focus on cooking the meal, not maintaining the appliances or plumbing. The visual here nicely illustrates this idea with PaaS sitting above infrastructure as a service, IaaS, meaning that PaaS handles many of the complexities that would otherwise be your responsibility. The icons show things like development tools and database management, which are all part of what you get when choosing a PaaS solution, letting you concentrate on coding and innovation. This allows teams to move faster and reduces operational overhead because they don't have to spend time managing infrastructure components. Let's begin by thinking about how we access software today. Topic: Software as a service. Often, instead of installing programs directly onto our computers, we use applications that live in the cloud. This is what we refer to as software as a service, SaaS for short, and it means you connect to and use apps over the internet, without managing the underlying infrastructure. A perfect example would be Microsoft Office 365. You don't install Word or Excel on your machine, you access them through a web browser. Similarly, email services like Gmail or Outlook and calendar applications are also prime examples of SaaS because everything runs on someone else's servers, not yours. So what does this mean for security? Well, it changes the shared responsibility model significantly. We'll explore that in detail soon. But essentially, with SaaS, the provider handles almost all of the security concerns, think patching operating systems, managing databases, and ensuring application availability. It's a shift from owning and maintaining everything yourself to subscribing to a service. Topic: Shared responsibility model. Let's talk about something fundamental when we move to the cloud, the shared responsibility model. This isn't just a technical detail, it dictates who is accountable for what security aspects. Think of renting an apartment versus owning a house. As a renter, you're responsible for your belongings and maybe some upkeep inside, but the landlord handles structural issues like the roof or foundation. The cloud works similarly. The model clearly defines how responsibilities are split between Microsoft, as the cloud provider, and you, the customer. Understanding this is critical to avoid gaps in security coverage and ensure a safe environment for your data and applications. Now, looking at this chart, we see three broad categories. What's always your responsibility, what varies depending on the service type, and what Microsoft takes care of. The first section, responsibility always retained by the customer, highlights things like the information you put in the cloud, your data, and managing user identities. This makes perfect sense. Even if you use a sophisticated cloud application, you're still accountable for what that application contains and who has access. The next section, responsibility varies by type, is where it gets interesting because it depends on whether you're using software as a service, SaaS, platform as a service, PaaS, or infrastructure as a service, IaaS. SaaS, like Microsoft 365, takes care of much for you, whereas IaaS gives you more control but also more responsibility. Notice how the blue shading indicates shared ownership. For example, network controls are partially managed by both you and Microsoft depending on your chosen service model. Finally, responsibility transfers to cloud provider shows areas like physical host and data centers which are fully owned and maintained by Microsoft. They handle the underlying infrastructure, the servers, networking, cooling, power, so you can focus on building applications and serving customers. This division allows both parties to specialize in their respective areas of expertise, creating a stronger overall security posture. Let's think about how different cloud services offer varying levels of control and responsibility, because understanding this difference is crucial when choosing the right solution. We'll compare infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. These represent different approaches to using computing resources in the cloud, each with its own trade-offs regarding flexibility, management overhead, and cost structure. Topic: IaaS. Infrastructure as a service, IaaS, is often described as the most flexible option available. Imagine you're building a house. With IaaS, you're essentially renting the land, buying all the construction materials like wood and bricks, and hiring contractors to build everything exactly how you want it. You have complete control over every aspect of your environment, from the operating system on up. This means you configure and manage the hardware for your application, things like virtual machines, network settings, storage. It's powerful, but also requires significant technical expertise. Now, let's consider a different scenario with topic PaaS. Platform as a service shifts some of that responsibility to the cloud provider. Going back to our house analogy, it's like renting a fully equipped apartment building. The platform handles all the underlying infrastructure, the plumbing, electricity, and foundation, allowing you to focus solely on developing your application. With PaaS, you don't worry about servers or operating systems, just writing code and deploying it. This speeds up development time and reduces operational complexity. Finally, we have topic SaaS, software as a service, which is the most hands-off approach. Think of it like subscribing to Netflix. You simply use the software without worrying about any underlying infrastructure or platform details. Users pay for the software they use on a subscription model and everything else is managed by the provider. You just access the service through a web browser or app. This is incredibly convenient, but offers the least amount of customization. Topic Knowledge check introduction. We're now going to pause briefly for a knowledge check, which is really just a quick way for us to see how well the core concepts are landing. This isn't meant to be stressful. Think of it like a temperature check. Are we all on roughly the same page before moving forward? The instructions here outline how to join using your smartphones or mobile devices and a specific code, 123-45-678, for this learning path. Topic Polling 2 mechanics. The quiz itself is quite simple, with only one question presented as multiple choice. You'll see 3 options: the Azure portal, PowerShell, and a local tool, and you're asked to select which one applies to the topic we just covered. Participating helps me understand what needs further clarification, but also reinforces your own learning by actively recalling information. It is important for us all to participate in this quiz because it allows me to adjust my teaching style if needed, ensuring that everyone gets the most out of this course. Let's quickly recap the foundational concepts from Learning Path 01, essentially a guided tour through some essential Microsoft Cloud knowledge. We'll cover resources available to you, and then dive into what it means to move your operations to the cloud. This isn't just about technology. It's about understanding where your responsibilities lie when using these services, and how different deployment models fit your needs. Finally, we will look at the advantages of using the cloud and the various service types available to you. Topic: Microsoft Learn modules. First, let's talk about Microsoft Learn modules. These are fantastic, free resources available at learn.microsoft.com training. Think of them like a self-paced online course tailored specifically for Microsoft technologies. They are broken down into small, manageable chunks with hands-on exercises so you can actually do things as you learn. This is where I recommend starting. They'll give you the practical experience needed to grasp these concepts. Topic: The shared responsibility model. Now, the shared responsibility model is crucial. It defines who's responsible for what when it comes to security in the cloud. Imagine renting an apartment. The landlord takes care of the building structure and common areas, but you are responsible for your belongings inside your unit. Similarly, Microsoft handles the underlying infrastructure, things like data centers and networks, while you manage the security within your applications and data. It's a collaborative effort. Topic: Public, private, and hybrid cloud. Next, let's look at different cloud deployment options. Public, private, and hybrid cloud. A public cloud, like Azure or AWS, is owned by a third-party provider and shared among multiple customers. A private cloud is dedicated solely to your organization. Think of it as having your own data center but managed internally or by a partner. Hybrid cloud combines both, allowing you to run some workloads on premises and others in the public cloud for flexibility. Topic: Benefits of cloud computing. Moving on to benefits, why even bother with the cloud? There are so many advantages, including cost savings because you only pay for what you use, increased scalability meaning you can easily adjust resources as needed, and improved reliability due to redundant infrastructure. Essentially, it allows businesses to focus on innovation rather than managing hardware. Topic: Cloud service types. Finally, let's discuss cloud service types, IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. Infrastructure as a service, IaaS, is like renting the raw building blocks of IT, servers, storage, networking. You manage everything else. Platform as a service, PaaS, gives you tools to build applications without worrying about infrastructure. It's akin to renting a fully equipped workshop. Software as a service, SaaS, delivers ready-to-use applications like email or CRM. Think of it as simply subscribing to a service.